the Capitol Hill is historic. It has never happened before. We have these American citizens, civilians, protesting for Donald Trump against Biden, who decide to enter the Capitol Hill and do vandalism in the name of democracy, in the name of freedom, in the name of their right to protest the results of the elections, which they think and which they're sure were rigged. But who benefited from the entire event? Who eventually was able to get out with the trophy that he or she was looking for? It is very important to understand what is the motive behind this event and who incited it, who are the main players, what are the provocative factors, and how the eventual agenda is going to materialize. First of all, the number one thing is that we all have an issue with white supremacy. I do. I've been the biggest supporter of BLM all my life. I've been one of their biggest supporters, have done aggressive campaigning for them in the middle of everything. I've supported the Biden campaign against Trump at the peak when Biden was losing. I supported Biden against Trump in the name of human rights because I couldn't see Trump administration doing mass sterilization of Hispanic detainees in the internment concentration camps. I have campaigned heavily for Biden against Trump. But the important thing is to remember that no matter whose side you're on, what you believe in, what you support, it is always important to understand what's behind the canvas, what's behind the curtain, before you can come to a conclusion and make sound, informed, educated decisions. That will, if you're not going to make sound decisions, we're going to have long-term, lifelong regrets. We all know that Trump was not going to concede to these elections. Everybody knew that. He was giving the Democrats a real hard time in trying to certify the victory of Biden. He was trying to negotiate so that he could get something big out of the entire process where he was making the Democrats run around his finger. And he was using his QAnon supporters for this purpose. We all know that. We've been through it. We all know that. At the same time, the Democrats were supporting the BLM. And not that Trump was not supporting them, but Trump decided to launch a counter movement by the name of Blue Lives Matter, supporting the cops instead, and demonizing the BLM as Antifa, which is a militant movement per the narrative of the Trump administration. Coming back to the point, we all know Trump was not going to concede. We all know Trump was going to give Democrats a tough time. And we all know that the Democratic Party in US is under complete control of George Soros. We have known this for years. If you don't know this, then you're stupid and you're the least informed person in US and the rest of the world. George Soros controls the strings of DNC, the Democratic National Party of US, and has been doing that for a while, has been using DNC for its own ulterior agenda that is not synonymous with the national interests of the US, resulting in the Syrian invasion, resulting in the Libyan invasion, resulting in the Yemen war. And we all know what are the sequelae of all these things that happened during the time of the Obama and Biden tenure. Everything was under control of Soros. And then Trump comes and decides to do everything differently, withdrawing forces from Afghanistan, ending the glorious era of the military industrial complex that survived on wars, that made profits of the dead bodies of Muslim children like Alyan. This was like a 4-year-old Syrian boy who was found drowned in the Mediterranean Sea. His body was found on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. And the reason why he drowned was because his small boat capsized. And the reason why his small boat capsized was because there were too many refugees trying to flee from the hot mess that Obama created in Syria under the direct orders of George Soros. So I'm not supporting Trump. I've always supported Biden on the basis of human rights for blacks, human rights for Hispanics, that Trump has unfortunately trampled upon during his tenure. But what is wrong is wrong. So the same Soros has come up with this plot to incite and provoke a coup over the Capitol Hill. Same Soros has provoked and precipitated this QAnon movement. He has the ways to do it. Don't tell me that he does not know how to do it. He's smart enough to know how he can manipulate these QAnon protesters protesting for Trump's victory and protesting against Biden's nomination, making them get into the Capitol Hill, invading the parliament, invading one of the highest offices of the US government, all so that he can create a case for impeachment of Donald Trump, all so that he can create a platform and an eventual consequence through which Donald Trump will have no choice but to concede. And this is exactly what happened. And the reason why I was so, I was initially believing that maybe it is Trump trying to incite a civil crisis. He wants to have, nationwide riots. He wants to have nationwide civil crisis, and then he's going to declare martial law to, in the name of law and order. He could still do that. He's still in power. And then he'll use that martial law to be able to finalize and make his dictatorial rule last forever, like on the same lines as Saddam Hussein. But what really surprised me was, and why I came up with this video is, what really shocked me and surprised me was that on his Twitter account, Donald Trump, in the middle of all this frenzy and chaos and all this mayhem, he comes on Twitter and he says that please go back to your homes. Please be peaceful. We want peace. We want law and order. Go home. Stop protesting. So this is the same Donald Trump that is currently being maligned and demonized as the one who incited terrorism. The same Donald Trump at the peak of the mayhem was actually telling everybody to go home and be peaceful. And what is the next thing that happens? Twitter and Facebook decide to block him forever. And so all that beautiful speech that he did, where he said, we want peace, we don't want this, we know the elections are rigged, we know this thing happened, there was election fraud, but you know what? We want peace, and this is not the way to do it. This is